The Art Beat, a weekly program putting you in touch with artists and arts events from the J.T. and Margaret Talkington College of Visual and Performing Arts at Texas Tech University. Good day, everyone, and welcome to The Art Beat on KLZK FM 105.7. Hope you're having a great weekend so far. This is your host, Peter Martins, coming to you from the Talkington College of Visual and Performing Arts on the beautiful campus of Texas Tech University. And I have the pleasure of talking today with Professor Corey Sullivan from the School of Music. Hello, Corey.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Corey serves as an assistant professor of music education in the choral area, and so he is also associate director of choral studies over in the School of Music. That has to be hard to fit onto a name tag or a business card.
It is, and sometimes I'll just say choral music education. That's kind of a shorthand for it.
What do they call it? Shipping? You ship the names together?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
Nice. Well, the campus is green and it's getting a little warm outside, and our thoughts on campus tend to turn to summer. And what does summer mean in the Talkington College on campus? But summer camps across our schools. And we've had a couple shows already, and we'll have a couple more after this one. So as you might guess, listeners, we're going to be talking about the choral camp, or choir camp, I guess as it's called. Is there a fancy acronym or name for?
We use ASCC, the All-State Choir Camp.
Oh, okay. All-State Choir Camp, ASCC. I mean, a good acronym is always good. Good for marketing.
Yeah, agreed.
So, All-State Choir Camp. Now, you have the term All-State in there, and you're not talking about insurance, right? What are we talking about?
That's right. Yeah. So in Texas, just about anybody who is enrolled in a public school choir goes through the All-State process. They get their packet of music, they go to all regions, and then move up to state level, and et cetera, and a series of auditions until they could possibly go to All-State. As part of that process, because it's a big deal in the state of Texas in public high schools, a lot of schools of higher or institutions of higher learning in the state of Texas host these summer camps that are essentially dedicated to, hey, you just got your music, why don't we learn it and sing it and perform it together instead of just learning it in a practice room by yourself?
And thereby getting a leg up for the All-State auditions, I imagine.
Exactly right.
Okay. Excellent. So, yeah, this is a big thing in Texas. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are aware of it. It culminates at the Texas Music Educators Association conference every February, where these all-state ensembles all perform.
That's right.
Right, on a couple days, 2-3 days?
Yeah, usually over the course of 2 or so days, depending on the ensemble.
Okay. So where do your bulk of your all-staters in the choir realm come from in the state? You know, I know there are pockets of like, oh, the orchestras are really good in this area. Whatever bands are good over here. How about choir? Yeah,
it's kind of similar in that way. We get a lot of people from the larger metropolitan areas, as you might imagine, places like Dallas, Houston, Austin, things like that. But you really do get students from all over Texas who end up going to All-State. In fact, I was just talking to a director yesterday in Hereford who had an All-State student, I think for the first time in several decades, if I remember right. So you really do. It's pretty, I wouldn't say exactly representative of the state, but you do get a pretty good sampling of people from all over the state.
Interesting. And how about Lubbock? I know you haven't been here super long, but what's our percentage of the all-state choir cohort from LISD, for instance?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I could give you an exact percentage, but I could say that we're well represented.
Okay,
we do have local students from LISD, Friendship ISD, Cooper ISD, who end up going to All-State every year.
And are those largely your recruiting base for the All-State Choir Camp, or is it all over the state for that as well?
We end up with a mix of both. As you might imagine, I would say probably the bulk of our students do come from the local area, from a variety of ISDs. We get homeschool students every now and then. But we do also have students who come from all over Texas. In fact, one of the things that we ask just about every year is to see who drove the furthest.
Sure.
And I mean, we have had kids who are like from the border with Louisiana who have come to this camp.
Wow.
So, I mean, we do get them. We get them from all over the place.
Interesting. So tell us a bit about the camp itself then. I imagine you don't just kind of woodshed the choral audition excerpts all day, every day.
That is right, yeah. It is a little bit more than that. It happens over the course of 5 days, and we do a variety of activities. Of course, we are spending a good amount of time woodshedding, but we also do some social events. Like we do a tour of Texas Tech for the students who are here, because many of these students end up applying for music schools and want to maybe potentially come to Tech. So we take them around campus on one day. We also, as you are very well aware, have great aquatic facilities on campus here. So we have one night that we dedicate to going to visit those and spending time at the lazy river and the pool and all that kind of stuff. We have a talent show that happens one night, and that is a talent show for both the students who come to campus, but also our camp counselors who are drawn from our student body here at Texas Tech. A lot of them are music ed majors.
And you need a lot of those to staff a camp like this, right?
Oh,
you have
yeah.
Small army?
Absolutely, yeah. It usually is between 15 and 20 students who work the camp to help out with this, because we have over 150, 200, kind of depending on the year, students who come to Tech for this. And then, of course, a big event for a lot of students that come to Texas Tech is something that we have called Squad Wars, which is students who get here. You can think of it kind of like the Sorting Hat from Harry Potter.
Okay.
They come to campus and they get put into a group, color-based group, and those groups compete against each other in a variety of ways. Like, oh, that kid answered a question right in class, he gets points. Or, oh, this group, did the best at this activity that we did in our social time during the break, so they get a certain amount of points. And, of course, at the end, they get to find out who was in first place and second place and third place and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. And the assignment to the different squads is it's arbitrary, random, whatever?
Mostly arbitrary and random.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I suppose that's a good way to mix students, but also give them a kind of a built-in cohort, so to speak, to go through.
Exactly.
So are there any other divisions of the camp? You talked about the squad, which is kind of this social thing. How about students at different levels of, kind of experience, expertise, whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you probably know, schools in Texas are in the UIL system, and part of that UIL system is that their conference is based on school size. Most schools that offer an all-state camp in Texas will offer an all-state summer camp, will offer a large school track for students who are at 5A or 6A schools who are going through the all-state process. Well, it's actually a separate process with separate music for students from 4A, 3A, lower, smaller schools called the small school choir. And
so it's a two-part division, small school, large school, and the division is between 4A and 5A.
Exactly.
Interesting. Huh.
Yep. And we at Texas Tech, we're one of the schools in Texas and there have been more adding these as time has gone by, but we were one of the first to add a dedicated small school track.
Okay.
So we don't just offer camp and learning experiences to students from these larger schools. We actually offer them to small schools as well. And we have, even since I've been here for this will be my third camp. Even since then, we have seen that choir grow from about 30-something to about, I think last year we were in the 60-something range. So it's
of just the small schools.
Just small school.
Interesting.
So yeah, it is a growing thing.
Huh. Okay. And as you mentioned, totally different audition material for each of those groups. So it totally makes sense that you have to focus on them for what they are.
Absolutely.
Now, do you see, this is always interesting to me, getting to know the Texas education landscape, I guess, in the high schools. Do you feel a difference between, like, let's say you've got a 60-person 5A, 6A choir and a 60-person 4A and under choir? Does it sound different? Do the kids act different? What Go ahead and caricature for a moment, if you will.
Sure. I mean, yes and no. It's kind of like going to a large university versus going to a smaller university or college. The kids in the smaller programs tend to all know each other. They tend to be a little closer knit. Mm-hmm. You tend to have people who everybody was in this choir, and then everybody graduated to this choir, and then everybody graduated to this choir.
Okay.
Whereas at a large school, you might have more options and bigger programs. If you're at a large school, for example, in Dallas or the Dallas area, you probably aren't going to know everybody in that program, and you're probably not going to sing in every choir that you are able to sing in over the course of your time at that school. But as far as sound goes, that's more of a regional thing. I've noticed that there's a difference in sound between West Texas and Central Texas and East Texas.
Now, is that basically a dialect of English difference in sound, or I don't know how scientific you've gotten here? But,
yeah, it's hard to say. There are accents and, of course, things that have influenced people as they sing. But the difference in sound is still a thing that kind of mystifies me a little bit.
That's fascinating.
You can listen to choirs, for example, around here and go, oh yeah, that's a West Texas choir.
Huh. Okay. So it may not even be whatever reflective of the spoken version of the language, just traditions of how vowels are formed or whatever, those sorts of things. Huh.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a great party game for choir directors, is drop the needle on a choir from somewhere in the state and see if who can get the closest to the zip code or something.
That does sound interesting. I'm thinking of assignments for my undergrads now,
There you go. Okay, so Corey Sullivan, we've been talking about the All-State Choir Camp coming up this summer, and it's happening
starts on June 9th and goes through June 13th.
Great. Is it another Friday the 13th? No, that's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday.
Okay,
that's a Saturday.
We've already had 2 of those this year, right? Can't have another one. So tell us a little bit. You said this was your 3rd choir camp. Did you dive right in when you first came to Texas Tech?
I did, actually. Yeah, it was a bit of an unusual situation in that I was hired around April, May of 2023, and then my first actual responsibilities at Texas Tech were working that choir camp.
Oh, interesting. That was your introduction, so to speak.
That's right. So my first group of students were not actually Texas Tech students, which is quite fun. But it was a great introduction to come here, see what our values are, to see how we do things, and get to know the faculty, and get to know the students, and how my wonderful colleague Alan Zabriskie works. And of course, getting to know a bunch of teachers, because in addition to our undergrads who work this camp, we also have teachers from around the state of Texas who come to work this camp. Usually in the neighborhood about 15 to 20 people. So got to know a lot of them are alumnus or alumni of our program, although not all of them. We do have a couple people who are not affiliated with Texas Tech. But it was a great way to kind of get my bearings before I had to walk in on the first day and go, okay, now I teach here at this university in West Texas, which is 1,200 miles away from where I'm from, and there are no trees and all that kind of stuff.
You got a healthy dose of the Kool-Aid of all kinds before you actually had to start.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Nice. So where did you come from most immediately before?
Well, I came here. This is my first position post getting my doctorate, which I got at Florida State University.
Okay.
But I'm originally from South Georgia, just kind of north of Tallahassee, Florida, where FSU is.
Okay, so you're on a drift west so far.
That's right.
Okay, interesting. And we were speaking of choir techniques and sounds and such. Is that a big difference in Texas? Or maybe another question is, do you notice a level of choral expertise in a state like Texas compared to a state like Florida, compared to a state like Georgia, or am I painting with too broad of a brush here?
It's different. I mean, it is very different. And I will say right off the bat, Texas is a great place to be in choir at any level. I mean, public school level, in secondary learning, it is a big deal in Texas. But having said that, Florida is another pretty big state for music. And choirs in Florida are also pretty exemplary. They're not quite to the level of funding and not quite to the level of maybe intensity, if you want to use that word to describe it, as a lot of the Texas choirs are.
Okay.
But they're good. They're good choirs there. As far as actually directing a choir, it's more or less the same. The West Texas accent isn't that different from the South Georgia / North Florida accent.
Sure.
Lots of removing diphthongs and things like that,
Wow. Yeah. Preparing people for the broader world through choir.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very nice. Very nice. So June 9th through the 13th, you mentioned.
That's right.
How do people become involved if they want?
Well, our website on our School of Music page has a dedicated All-State Choir Camp page. And I'm sorry, I don't have the URL off the top of my head, but if you Google Texas Tech All-State Choir Camp, it will be the first result. You can
That's
also...
the easy way.
Exactly, yeah. If you want more information, of course, you're more than welcome to email Alan Zabriskie or I. Both of our emails are found on that same website. We also have Rob Rogers, who is our camp coordinator, as well as Becky Kozinski, who is the assistant coordinator for that camp. We also have, of course, a dedicated choir camp email, which is choircamp, and this is very unexpected, at ttU.edu. No, it's
no
simple.
period between choir and camp.
No period. It
Okay.
is just choir camp, one word. But the information is on the website. We do offer different payment options depending on if students are from Lubbock or not and want to stay on campus or not.
Okay, so there is a residential option.
Exactly.
I guess that makes sense if people are coming from Tyler or Nacogdoches or something like that.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's about $250 cheaper for people to not have to stay on campus.
Gotcha.
We do recommend that, of course, for people, or that they stay on campus, especially for people who are coming from out of town. But for folks who they go to Lubbock High and they live right down the street, we're not going to require them to come stay in a dorm. So
Sure. And they still get to go to the lazy river and everything with
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
else. Okay, good.
everything
Just
more
making
or less is the same. They just get to go home at night.
sure. Great. Or probably have to. I'm sure the esprit de corps is part of the attraction and really why people love it and keep coming back.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned Rob Rogers a little while ago. I think we had him on the show early on, and he's a Tech alum, but also now coming back and a local director, right?
That's
but
right.
Now coming back to work for a choir camp. So it's nice to see the ecosystem happening over kind of longer spans of years.
Yep, it really is. It's very cool. And a lot of our former undergraduates, like Rob, are teaching locally. Like Rob is at Coronado High School. But we also see people who end up getting graduate degrees who come through the program who end up working the summer camp. Which is kind of cool.
Well, it sounds like a great function for the immediate purpose of learning the all-state music, but also for recruitment and retention and all the synergistic things that a choral area and a school of music need to do. So congrats on keeping it going and for being in charge of it in some fashion. Is that right? Okay.
Somewhat. I mean, Alan and I talked pretty extensively, Alan Zabriskie, about how lucky we are that our job is basically just to be the music directors.
Okay.
Which
well, that is nice.
is good because A, that's kind of what we want to do, and B, I don't think anybody wants Alan and I to be in charge of this. I don't know that would be beneficial to our program, especially when you consider our wonderful, wonderful leadership who really does the bulk of scheduling things and making sure students are okay and, in the right places and where they should be and following the rules and things like that. Of course, shout out to our own Hannah Porter, who is a staff member here in the School of Music.
Right.
Who is, so instrumental to making all of that happen. She really is phenomenal. We're lucky to have her.
Yes, it takes a village to pull these things off, right?
It really does.
Right. Well, I want to thank our guest, Professor Corey Sullivan from the School of Music. Thanks for talking to us about all things maybe Texas and choir, and especially the choir camp at Texas Tech coming up this June. Is there a final performance? One final question. Is there a final performance at the end of the camp that people could come to, parents or even the community?
There is. It's usually, it's always Saturday, and it is usually right around noon. I believe last year it was at 11:30, and it may be the same this year. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But it is usually that Saturday right around noon, with more info getting posted as we get closer to the date.
Got it. Okay. Well, thanks much for being here. We'll see you again.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Bye-bye. The Art Beat, a weekly program putting you in touch with artists and arts events from the J.T. and Margaret Talkington College of Visual and Performing Arts at Texas Tech University.